Carl Sagan could not have predicted 2021, but he did see it coming. He wrote the following back in 1995, and we quote, "I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance." Roll that around for a while. Those were among his final published words. He died 10 months later. Here we are 25 years later, realizing just what he was trying to tell us back.
Well, I can tell you we shared it with America, but I can't share it with you. Okay? The most advanced offensive weapons on the planet, things that none of the superpowers have, developed by Israel, shared with America.
We seem to have lost focus and vision, to have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow and improve productivity.
We're very powerful. This country is very powerful. It's far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody, not even close.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Guys, welcome to the live stream. Thank you guys for being here. We are just going to get right into it tonight. There's going to be no political discussion outside of nuclear weapons talk tonight. Everything else is on hold. Major revelation, guys, related to the last stream. Shout out to Tom Hudson on Twitter, guys. Follow Tom Hudson on Twitter. He has been parallel researching pretty much every topic we've been investigating. And today, he hit a breakthrough, and that's what all of today's live stream is about. 4th generation nuclear weapons, guys. We finally have a name for the weapon they used on MH370. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Lowell Wood. Lowell Wood was mentioned on Monday's live stream where we dug into John Nuckolls as one of the co-developers of the nuclear pumped X-ray laser. And today, we have a direct connection between Lowell Wood, who worked with John Nuckolls, and gravity manipulation. Boom! You just heard it correctly. We have a direct connection to Lowell Wood, John Nuckolls, and using nuclear weapons for gravitational manipulation. I'll even take it one step further. Lowell Wood proposed building, you're not going to believe this, a black hole superweapon. Black hole superweapon, literally the exact same thing that I proposed a year ago that we could make based on this technology. I had never heard of Lowell Wood 48 hours ago. There you go. That's what tonight's live stream is about. Thank you guys for being here tonight. It's going to be a great one. So let me just set the frame. Let me just set the background. I have been saying that MH370 was zapped by a thermonuclear weapon through a wormhole, that nuclear weapons are literally able to manipulate space-time. I've been saying that for probably the better part of a year at this point. And right off the bat, I want to play this clip that proves that I've been saying that. That was an X space. This was one of the more recent X spaces back in June. So this is like 6 months old, this video that we're going to play here right off the bat. This is me talking to Dr. Jack Sarfati. Jack Sarfati in an X space. And the reason, what you need to know about this is that there's this idea of the Schwinger limit. That the reason why we don't see space-time manipulation is because it only begins to happen at a very high energy level. And when we talk about energy level, we talk about energy density. Like you can have a big amount of energy, but it can't be all separated out. It needs to be condensed into a specific area. This Schwinger limit, when this Schwinger limit is breached, then space-time becomes nonlinear. Then the particle pairs, the photons, or the electrons, the particle, the positive and minus particle pairs that normally cancel each other out, get released from space-time. So naturally, you would think, well, we're building these thermonuclear weapons that are releasing this huge amount of energy. Shouldn't those be manipulating space-time? Shouldn't those be approaching this Schwinger limit? In fact, it was Jack Sarfati in a email exchange that told me, or actually, no, it wasn't even an email exchange. He went on with Jeremy Reese, and I think it was Michael Perrone that asked him about the Schwinger limit. And Jack Sarfati says, stop talking about the Schwinger limit. And he said something about nuclear weapons. And what he was implying was that if you could manipulate gravity through these huge energy densities, then nukes would have done it and we would have seen it. And he was right. They would have. The problem was conventional nukes weren't approaching the energy levels that were required. Nukes that we were using back in the 50s and 60s. But when we started getting to high efficiency nuclear weapons using pulse shaping, using aneutronic weapons, that's a 4th generation nuclear weapon. A pure fusion bomb is a 4th generation nuclear weapon. Technically, they have never been seen by the public. So what we have been doing is, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself right now. We're going to get to the clip here in just a second. We took the idea of nukes and we started making micro nukes, miniaturized, tailored thermonuclear weapons that aren't just about blowing things up. They're not just about radiation. We can control the radiation to make a neutron bomb if we want to have a whole bunch of neutrons and radiation, or we can make our reaction clean, aneutronic, if we want to have an EMP. So we can control the type of thermonuclear weapon that we detonate. And this is what the public has missed. Presumably, these thermonuclear weapons began to manipulate space-time given the right configuration. Here we go. Here's Jack Sarfati and me talking a while back.
Musk truck.
Oh, that guy.
Okay. At the secret. Okay, well, that's exactly correct. I know exactly what that was about. That's what they hid, I think. So I have to talk to Eric. See what Eric.
Well, let me ask you this, Jack, on that front. So you don't think it's possible that maybe Wheeler was doing like hydrogen bomb research and figured out some aspect of like space time from that, and therefore got interested in gravity?
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Why?
Because I'm a PhD in physics, I understand general relativity. I understand nuclear physics. I learned nuclear physics from people from the Manhattan Project, and I know the details. I know the back, and you don't.
So that was the back and forth between Jack Sarfati, where I proposed John Archibald Wheeler, who helped develop the H-bomb, who was definitely one of the engineers that had been working on nuclear weapons. He's the guy that coined the terms, both of the terms, black hole and wormhole. John Archibald Wheeler, the guy that coined those terms, said, is it possible that they figured out how to manipulate space-time with the H-bomb when our thermonuclear weapons became 1,000,000 times more powerful than the bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima? And Jack Sarfati says, no, it's not possible. That's stupid because you're not a PhD. He says, I'm a PhD, and I knew the Manhattan Project scientist. Therefore, I know that's not possible. But he doesn't explain why. He doesn't explain why it's not possible. Now, I'm not going to play the rest of that. You guys know Jack Sarfati. You know how he is. I just think that clip is going to age very poorly.
If I were...
It's going to age very poorly, guys. But I want to show a different clip right here. This will get us on to our topic for tonight, which is, this is Hal Puthoff. A new Age of Disclosure trailer has dropped. That's the new CIA-funded, alien documentary that they're doing. I'm already blocked. I've been blocked by the producer. I'm blocked by the Age of Discovery marketing Twitter account as well, which I just think is wild because I've been critical of them. But, is it really warrant blocking? How petty do you have to be to block somebody when you're a literal movie promotion account? That just seems bizarre to me. Okay, here's Hal Puthoff, guys. This is the GOAT right here, Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff very possibly has high enough access that he's essentially the equivalent of the president of the United States. It's very possible that when they detonate these fourth-generation thermonuclear weapons, that this is the guy that's got to be in the shadowy room with all the people smoking cigarettes. Maybe they vaporize now. I don't know. Maybe they're too boomer and they don't do that. Pretty sure he's in the room when they're making those decisions. That's not to say that this movie is really credible or in any sense. I wouldn't trust half the people in this. I really only trust pretty much Marco Rubio. I don't even trust Hal Puthoff. I've literally emailed with this man. The man that you're looking at here in this movie, I've emailed with, and he pretends like he doesn't know about any of his buddies and the science that he's literally promoting right here in this clip. Here we go.
If I were a species from somewhere else who saw how we were coming up this curve of, atomic energy and nuclear energy, and then began to realize what it takes to do their kind of technologies with warping time and warping space and so on, I can imagine that could be seen as a threat to another species because they would recognize that, well, it's only a matter of time and they're going to be doing what we're doing and then we're going to have to deal with them.
So,
okay, chat. What? Hal Puthoff just saying, oh, we're figuring out these nuclear energies, these nuclear weapons. And then the aliens and then in his next breath. So he goes from, he says, atomic energy and nuclear energy, and then begin to realize what it takes to do these kinds of technologies with warping time and warping space and so on. How are people still doubting me? How are people still doubting me right now? How are people still doubting the MH370 videos? I've been right about everything. And I'm going to take it a step further. I also know what's going on now. I can't believe that I'm actually saying this because people wonder what's going on with the UFO topic. Why have they not killed you if any of this stuff is real? How does the secrecy work and all this stuff? But let's finish. I'm going to finish this clip and then I'm going to explain. I'm going to tell you what's going on here. So there's Hal Puthoff, still alive at 90 years old. Still alive at 90 years old. Life expectancy in the United States is 76. Let's keep going.
going to be doing what we're doing, and then we're going to have to deal with them.
So it doesn't surprise me that their highest priority would be to identify what threats they might face and learn everything about them. This pattern of activity seems to me utterly logical. It seems to me to be an extension of the evolutionary process that governs life writ large as we know it, which is self-preservation is number one.
That guy right there, he tried to vote for Kamala Harris 3 times. He tried and they wouldn't let him. They had to keep him away from the polling booth. He was trying to vote for Kamala Harris so many times, chat. So that's part of the problem. I mean, I said we weren't going to get political tonight. I lied, apparently. So I'm going to tell you guys what's going on right now with the UFO topic. And I'm not going to tell you whether or not there's aliens because I still don't know the answer to that. There still absolutely could be aliens. And what they're saying there could also be true. The aliens, if they exist, have technology beyond our wildest dreams. They have technology that we have that we don't even believe. We have some of the alien technology. We don't even believe it. Our thermonuclear weapons created this. That's not the part I'm going to tell you. I know what's going on with the cover-up. Here's what's going on with the cover-up. And how did I learn this? We're going to go through some of the snippets of how I learned this today. If you want to learn yourself and not just take me at face value, I'll also tell you how to do that. If you want to learn yourself, read the words from the engineers themselves. Learning from John Nuckolls, learning from Lowell Wood in the books written about their history. If you want to avoid repeating history, you learn about it. That's how we learn about how not to repeat the mistakes of the past. And there's an amazing paragraph in this, I think it's a biography or autobiography, I don't know, whatever, about these guys, where it talks about nuclear weapons secrecy and how Lowell Wood said a little bit too much to China one time. And he lost. And basically what's happened is they have built a culture of secrecy around nuclear weapons. People wonder, how would they keep this stuff secret? It would leak out. The reason why it doesn't leak out is peer pressure, because they've built a literal culture where you have been told that this stuff is top secret. You're a patriot, that we're building stuff, that we're going to beat the communists and the Russians and the Chinese and everybody else. Lowell Wood said a little bit too much to China, to somebody when he went on a visit to China, and they reprimanded him for it. They put him on tribunal. Very similar to what was done by done to Robert M.L. Baker by Ron Pandolfi. I've talked about it several times in the past, but that's what the JSON group does. They do these tribunals to determine whether or not you have violated national security by telling our enemies too much information. So what's going on? This is what's going on. We've been hiding space-time manipulation technology in the form of nuclear weapons under thermonuclear weapon classifications. We've been hiding the technology and the physics under thermonuclear weapon classification so that it's legally classified. It's legally classified. But the downside is this. From a moral perspective, it's extremely gray. From a moral perspective, we would look at this and we would go, sure, these thermonuclear weapons are legally classified, but you're literally hiding fusion energy from the world. You've solved fusion energy and you're hiding it because the same math and geometry that you use for thermonuclear weapons would be able to produce unlimited energy in the form of fusion as well. The same math. And we've classified that math because knowing the right geometry of how to shape your thermonuclear weapons can produce a black hole bomb in addition to producing a stable source of energy forever. So we've classified it, but there's moral ambiguity around it. The moral ambiguity about, well, wait a minute, I should be flying around on the Jetsons. So now realize that the government isn't this evil entity. The FBI is not an evil entity. The people that are gatekeeping this technology are also not an evil entity. They're made up of individuals. Some of those individuals who've worked on this technology, who've been privy to this technology, their moral compass tells them that this should be public. They say that they look back at this and they go, we've been hiding this for 70 years. 70 years we've been hiding this. And it should become public. At least they would all say that the safe stuff should become public. Those are the people that you are seeing in that documentary. That's Hal Puthoff. That's Eric Davis. They have been behind the scenes and they go, okay, this is crazy. This is too much secrecy. And some of this should come out. And you would say, well, why don't they just spill all the beans then? Why aren't they just saying, hey, we figured this out from nuclear weapons, blah, blah, blah? Two answers to that. One, maybe the alien thing is real. Maybe the alien thing is true. And number two, even they have lines as well. They all have a line that they don't want to cross either. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get this disclosure out without breaking their NDAs. They're trying to get this disclosure out without leaking nuclear weapons secrets, without damaging national security. That's what they're doing. So what you've got going on is you've got one side that has, both sides are privy to this. One side is saying, okay, some of this can come out. That's what the Hal Puthoff and crew are saying. They're also gatekeepers. But they're saying some of this technology can come out. Some of this science can come out. And then the other side are the true believers. The true believers in the government. The true patriots that are saying, maybe true patriots not the right word, because I think patriotism could be relative in this case. But they say all of this needs to stay secret. These are nuclear weapon secrets. Anything that we say to the public will be found out by our adversaries, and they will begin to develop these weapons, and then they will use them against us. So you have two sides of it. You have the side that doesn't want any of it to come out. And then you have the side that says, well, some of this stuff can come out. Some of it can come out. And then you would say, well, why has Ashton not been stopped? Because the people that want some of this out, I'm allied with them. But they hate me also. I'm allied with them, but they hate me also because I have no filter. Because I don't stop at their line. I just keep pushing. Because they say, well, we want some of this out. And I say, no, all of it. Everything's coming out. I'm the demon. Ashton the Demon 4 Orb says, your technology leaked in public videos. It's all fair game now. Finders keepers, baby. Finders keepers. And then the other side says, this is all secret. But here's their problem. They can't do anything to me. The thing they use to keep everybody else in line has no power over me. I have no NDA. I have nothing they can legally hold over my head. And even if they were to come after me and say, you're leaking weapons secrets, you have to stop, that would prove me right. So they can't do that either. It's a catch-22. So there's nothing they can legally say against me. And even if they were to invoke some argument about restricted data and I've been helping with physics, then it would just prove everything I've been saying is real. So they can't do anything either. And the last bit is, why haven't they brought you in then? Why haven't they brought you in? And I have an answer for that too. Because they have built this culture of secrecy. It's basically like a fraternity or a sorority or any of those other things that you guys have been involved with. I was part of a fraternity. I mean, I like the guys, but I didn't really like the whole, ritual stuff that was going on. But it's all about psychological profile. They only bring people in that they've done a rigorous psychological profile on. And ironically about this, many of the nuclear weapons engineers, they were free thinkers. They were rebels. And this is why you have people pushing back, aiming for disclosure. Because they're trying to decide where's the line between we want this rebel who's without a cause, who's super intelligent, who can help build us weapons, but at the same time, we don't want somebody who's going to leak that information out to the public. And they want very specific psychological profiles of people that will be the true believers. People that will be the true believers in the cause. That we're working on this technology. It's for a greater good. It's for to keep America safe. And we can never let any of it come out. And somebody like me, let's just be honest, guys. Let's be honest. I don't fit the psychological profile. I don't fit the psychological profile. I'm somebody who's too honest, too straightforward, too much of a risk. If they were to bring me into this, what's to say that the very next day, the moment they piss me off, I'm not going to jump onto my social media and just start blabbing about everything, right? So we find ourselves in this situation. We find ourselves in this situation that we're in here today. So now we know why Trump has restarted nuclear weapons testing. Everybody's wanting to know, why has Trump restarted nuclear weapons testing? Yes, we are talking about politics. And here's the answer. The answer is because we have to advance our weapons even further. Even further. So we are currently on the 4th generation of thermonuclear weapons. We started with just an A bomb. Just a bomb that is a fission bomb that releases neutrons. And from there, we moved on to the 2nd generation of thermonuclear weapons. Thermonuclear weapons that have a first stage A bomb and a second stage fusion bomb. The 3rd generation is an efficient form of our thermonuclear weapons, of our 2-stage fission and fusion. The 4th generation of thermonuclear weapons is a clean fusion bomb. A second stage fusion payload that is detonated not by an A bomb, but by a non-fission trigger. Fission is equivalent to an A bomb, so a non-fission trigger is a non-A bomb that detonates our fusion payload. That fusion payload can be adjusted to release a lot of neutrons or a little bit of neutrons, aka aneutronic. So here's another video I've got ready to go that explains the 4th generation. I could play more of it, but I've just kind of explained the first 3 generations. So you should be pretty familiar, but if not, here's a link to Destiny is the name of the YouTube channel, 4th generation nuclear weapons. I'll post a link in the chat for you guys if you're on the YouTube, and then we'll listen to this. Because I didn't even know there was a 4th generation thermonuclear weapons, but now we know. Now we all know, because again, this stream is about educating ourselves. Here we go.
And what is that? In short, the 4th generation is the total antithesis of the 1st generation. Known as a pure fusion weapon, the 4th generation is a hypothetical hydrogen bomb that does not need a fission primary explosive to ignite the fusion of deuterium and tritium, like in the aforementioned thermonuclear weapons. For many years now, designers of such weapons have been researching whether it is possible to trigger the high pressure and temperature required to ignite a fusion reaction without using fission at all. The secondary stage of a thermonuclear bomb without the primary. The main reason weapon developers want to create such a device is that it would require no fissile material and would, therefore, be much easier to develop in secret than the standard thermonuclear weapons.
Wow. Wow. We are on fire, chat. We have been on fire. The part that's most convincing to me is how I predicted this. What they say in science is that Usually science is correct if it's able to predict future events, right? But the best part about this is coming up with predictions based on the MH370 videos and then realizing they're all real. Realizing they're all real things that I didn't even know about. Realizing that, which I'll look at in a second, that Lowell Wood literally was working on a black hole fusion bomb. He says we're literally working on these things.
But pure fusion weapons offer an interesting possibility beyond just the ability to make them in secret. They could generate arbitrarily small nuclear yields because no critical mass of fissile fuel needs to be assembled for detonation, as with a conventional fission primary. This would mean a significant decrease in collateral damage from fallout, because a fourth-generation nuclear weapon would not create the same radioactive byproducts associated with the other three generations. If fission can be removed from the nuclear weapons completely, we would have a weapon with the initial impact of a thermonuclear weapon, but without the horrifying radioactive fallout that traditionally follows.
Wow. So there it is. They say if we can get rid of the A-bomb portion, now we can make miniaturized, specialized thermonuclear weapons. There it is. That was the missing link that I was looking for. That was the missing link that I was looking for. I wanted to find, how did we go from making these big booms to now we're making a detonation that's large enough and yet small enough that it encapsulates a Boeing 777, but that's it. It annihilates or teleports a Boeing 777, but it doesn't do anything else to the background. Doesn't even blow the sky away. And here we go. You just explained it. So because we were able to make our non-fission triggers, now what they were doing, what have they been doing for the last 30 years? They've been creating specialized thermonuclear weapons. Thermonuclear weapons just like the ones in the MH370 videos that serve a very specific purpose. It can annihilate a Boeing 777 or teleport it, whatever the hell they're doing in the videos. Annihilation stock is going through the roof right now, by the way, guys. Annihilation stock is going through the roof. I'm really starting to second guess everything about what they're doing to the plane. But I still think very, very high probability it's an actual wormhole. One sec. What was he saying here? Trying to see if there was something else he was saying. No fissile material. Yeah, okay. So a clean fusion bomb. Clean fusion bomb would be the thing that we are looking for here. Now, we already spoke about John Nuckolls. Just as a side, John Nuckolls was working on the Project Bravo, Project Ripple project. He's the one that helped figure out how to increase efficiency by basically perfectly aligning your waves. So you just imagine in a simple example, you have two waves that are going at one another, aiming one right at one another, and then right at the middle when they hit, they annihilate. They annihilate each other. That's essentially what we're trying to do with our thermonuclear weapons. Except for at the middle of that, we want our fusion payload. We want our fusion payload. And so I was asking Grok, actually. After our last stream, I said, search for, this was Monday night, search for references of John Nuckolls talking about aneutronic fusion and or wormholes. So I shot that to Grok because I wanted to know if there's any evidence that John Nuckolls was working on having nuclear weapons manipulate space-time. That's what I was looking at. And the answer came back, no, there was nothing. At least according to Grok. He talks about, of course, inertial confinement fusion, but nothing, basically. And I had instead have it look at papers, have it look for everything it could find. You know, I talked about him collaborating, John Nuckolls collaborating with Edward Teller, and Edward Teller having his 1992 paper on using dipole confinement for aneutronic fusion for propulsion, but nothing specifically that connected Nuckolls to wormholes or anything like that. And then this happened, guys. And then this happened. Shout out to Tom Hudson one more time. because he's the one that found this. Actually, let me share the other screen. I don't think we're going to need sound anymore. Let me share it this way. There you go. Okay. He found this right here. I'll read it to you guys so you don't have to see. It says, Lowell also proposed. This was Lowell Wood. Lowell Wood, which is a colleague of John Nuckolls. All of a sudden, he posted this. Said, Lowell also proposed to use nuclear explosives to create black holes. In theory, ordinary black holes are collapsed stars so dense that even light cannot escape their powerful gravitational pulls. Although none have ever been detected with certainty, they are thought to widely populate the universe and individually to be many miles in diameter. Lowell wanted to create miniature ones. He developed a scheme whereby the matter for a proposed black hole would sit at the center of a special type of nuclear explosive. When detonated, the bomb would exert its force upon the matter and compress it into a tiny black hole. Wow. Wow. Lowell. Okay, his name is Lowell, not Lowell. Whatever. You guys got the point. There you go, guys. Does that sound familiar to you guys? We're going to put something at the center of our fusion device, and then we're going to compress it into a black hole. It sounds very, very similar to the MH370 videos. Extremely similar. So I saw this and I said, wow, that's crazy. So I found the document myself. Here it is. It's actually from a book. This is the source. So it's from this book called Star Warriors. You guys are seeing this, right? It's kind of freezing up. Okay, yeah. Star Warriors. So instead of going through it, I took some notes on it that I want to take a look at. But I want to, before we even get to that, wormholes are black holes. Black holes are creating wormholes. That was one of the big revelations in the last 2 years, in case you missed that. Remember when Salvatore Pais, I don't remember which hard truths it was. There's been several, and we've got another one coming up on Sunday, where he said, let's call it a black hole. He was talking about the MH370 videos. He said, let's call it a black hole. Says wormhole or whatever. Let's just call it a black hole. Salvatore Pais knows that a black hole is a wormhole. That's what is happening in the MH370 videos. So when we are seeing references to black holes, that's literally those nuclear engineers saying they're ripping open the fabric of space-time. They're manipulating the zero-point energy to create a black hole. And the black hole is going to collapse on itself. We learned this from Hawking radiation. Hawking radiation, the only question is how fast will a black hole dissipate? Which is the equivalent of asking how fast will your wormhole close? You're essentially doing the equivalent of trying to keep the door open as long as you can. You're using this space-time, this energy to create a geometry by which your object goes from over here to over here, and you need to keep that wormhole open as long as possible, that black hole open as long as possible, because what it wants to do is close. It wants to close ASAP. So this document connects directly from Nuckolls to Wood and directly to space-time manipulation. Now, I couldn't believe this. I don't even remember if I found this directly from the document here. But in here, there's actually this scientific paper, which is the Yahtzee of all Yahtzees. Because then, after I read that, here, actually, where is it? Let me close this right here. After I read that, I said, okay, search for Lowell Wood. Search for Lowell Wood for any references that connect to black holes, wormholes, or gravitational waves. Why did I say that? Well, because I just literally saw from that book, it literally talked about Lowell Wood wanting to make black hole weapons, right? And so it doesn't mention anything. It meant, and then I say, well, why? Or it doesn't, it kind of mentions some of this, but not really. And then I say, well, here's an excerpt from the book. How did you miss this? And next thing I know, it's saying, oh, well, there's scientific papers. Where is it? Somewhere in here. I think down here at the bottom. Wood proposed using nuclear explosions to generate detectable gravity waves, ripples in space-time predicted by Einstein. What? So I saw this from Grok. And of course, I clicked on the link. What do you guys think we're about to see here? What do you guys think we're about to see on the screen right now? Well, let's just go right to it, chat. Here's the scientific paper. Gravitational radiation production using nuclear explosions. Who are the scientific authors? The authors of this scientific paper? It looks like George Chaplin, John Nuckolls, and Lowell Wood. I don't know how you say his name. There you go. Right there. I'm going to leave this up for just a sec. 1 sec, guys. Okay, so there you go. Well. I haven't got the full paper here, but it says, it is shown that it may be possible to produce gravitational radiation powers in excess of 1 erg per second with modest-sized nuclear explosions. The gravitational radiation intensity near the explosion may be sufficiently high to be detectable, permitting general relativity experiments to be conducted in terrestrial environments. Wow. We're dadding. Well, there you have it, chat. I never would have expected that we would just have a scientific paper right there saying that they were, I mean, you don't write a scientific paper like that unless you're at a minimum expecting it to be true. At a minimum, that's your hypothesis, right? They're saying, there you go, nukes can produce high-frequency gravity waves. Nuclear weapons are manipulating space-time. The only question is, how much manipulation, how much bending of space-time is happening? And that, the question is, well, how powerful can you make your nuclear weapon? How confident are we of the ceiling of our current thermonuclear weapons? We were making bombs in the 40s that were destroying entire cities. And supposedly they got 1 million times more powerful than that. What if they got even more than that? What if they're unfathomably more powerful? They're definitely manipulating space-time. There's no question of it. General relativity says if you put enough energy into a dense enough region of space-time, you are going to manipulate space-time. You are going to bend space-time. So there you have it, guys. There's the scientific paper right there that directly connects. These are the guys that developed the clean fusion bomb. They developed a 4th generation thermonuclear weapon. And here they are. And this is 1974? 1974. They were saying we can test general relativity. When you're talking about general relativity, you're talking about space-time. Testing whether or not space is an empty vacuum or whether or not we can actually bend space-time as human beings. Absolutely incredible, guys. And yet, there's more. There's more, guys. So, how did I find this one? I started looking around related to those scientific papers, and I found this. Now, for some reason, if you don't listen to me a lot, you probably don't know that I talk about Robert M.L. Baker a lot. Robert M.L. Baker, also known as Bob Baker. He won a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011 for his work in high-frequency gravitational waves. He worked for Lockheed Martin once upon a time. He's passed away a couple years ago. Here's a scientific paper. This scientific paper references the one I just showed you. This scientific paper references the Nuckolls, Lowell, and what was that last guy's name? Chaplin or something like that. They reference him. And this scientific paper, Generation of Gravitational Waves with Nuclear Reactions, Giorgio Fontana and Robert M.L. Baker Jr. Wow. So he says, in an optimized dual beam design, gravitational wave amplitudes of whatever are theoretically achieved in the laboratory, which might have interesting general relativity and nuclear physics consequences. Boom. 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 Gotcha, bitch. I love it, guys. I love when a plan comes together. I love when the literal Black Project engineers who, what did we rate Robert M.L. Baker on the Black Project tiers list? I don't even remember what we rated him, like an A maybe. He might need an upgrade. This probably moves him up a rank. Also, we probably got to get Nuckolls and Lowell. Probably got to get them on the tier list as well, guys. We got to get the original nuclear weapons designers on the Black Project tier list because that's what this is all going back to. Okay, next thing here. I do want to highlight and mention this paper right here. This paper right here is called The Third Nuclear Age by a woman named Jenny Lynn Naylor. This is literally the sister of the guy that leaked the MH370 videos. We're just going to say it like it is. This is the sister of the guy that leaked the MH370 videos, and the MH370 videos are showing us a fourth generation thermonuclear weapon. And here she is. Since the end of the Cold War, the bipolar competition and cooperation between the United States and Russia have sustained global strategic stability in the second nuclear age. However, destabilizing technologies in the hands of the United States, Russia, and China will markedly change the strategic landscape in the near future. What the actual hell, man? So, this is 2019, 6 years ago. I just think that this is a wild. The fact that the sister of the leaker of the videos works in Homeland Security. 5 years after her brother goes to prison, she writes this paper. And the videos he leaked are showing a fourth generation thermonuclear weapon. Can't make it up. And then when I was searching for fourth generation thermonuclear weapons, I came across this. Another scientific papers. How many is that up to today? Is that already 3 scientific papers we've talked about here today? Fourth generation nuclear weapons. Military effectiveness and collateral effects. Looks like it was originally published in 2006, but maybe it was updated for 2024. I'm not really sure. This paper begins with a general introduction and update to fourth generation nuclear weapons and then addresses some particularly important military aspects on which there have only been a limited public discussion so far. So this paper here was also referenced by Grok as talking about aneutronic weapons. So I think I actually have screenshots. Here they are. Some of the screenshots that I thought were interesting from that scientific paper, and then we're going to go back to the original document about Wood. This one right here. This shows the relative different effects and outcomes of different thermonuclear weapons. So in this case, you can see it says hot fusion bomb. Hot fusion bomb releases soft X-rays and some fission neutrons. An H bomb, which is the third generation, soft X-rays and some fission and fusion neutrons. A pure fusion bomb is just the 14 MeV neutrons and soft X-rays. and then isomer bomb, positron bomb, and anti-proton bomb. But notice in all of these, they release X-rays or gamma rays. Every single one of these interactions releases X-rays or gamma rays. Now go back to the MH370 videos. We watch a plane get disappeared out of the sky, and in one video, we can see a flash of light. We can see a flash of light the moment the plane disappears. When 3 plasma balls converge isentropically on the plane, from equilaterally from all sides, we see a flash of light. But when we look at the thermal video, it's cold. The thermal video shows this flash of light is all black. Turns out it's not cold. It's that the wavelength of the light being released is outside of the thermal range. The wavelength of the light being released is either X-ray or gamma ray or ultraviolet, which is outside of the range of the thermal spectrum. So therefore, it automatically shows up as what? Black. Automatically shows up as black in the thermal. This is the dead-on, absolute proof, undeniable physical science proof that the videos are real. Nobody in a million years, nobody ever could have thought, oh, let's make our ZAP and our MH370 black. Anybody that ever faked this video, anybody that ever faked this, they would have made this be a white hot explosion. They would never make that black. Never. Because no one would even know. Why would you ever make this black? What are you trying to hoax here? If I'm hoaxing a portal, I'm not going to make it black either. If I'm hoaxing a detonation of the plane being destroyed, I'm not going to make it black. Humans only know about exothermic events, not endothermic ones. Certainly not a hoaxer that's making a fake VFX video. This is the absolute proof. From a scientific perspective, the fact that that's black, that means that what we're looking at here is a thermonuclear weapon. Classic sign of a thermonuclear weapon. And it's so specific that it can only be a thermonuclear weapon. It has to be something on this list right here that you're looking at on the screen. It has to be one of these options. Hot fusion bomb, H-bomb, pure fusion bomb, pure isomer bomb, pure positron bomb, pure anti-proton bomb. It's got to be a thermonuclear weapon, guys. So this is, again, from the 4th generation scientific paper that mentions these. That's a good paper, guys. Check it out. I'll put a link to this paper in the chat for you guys. Wait, which one? This one? Here it is. Here's a link. And then a couple more. I just thought a couple more interesting things from that document. So FGNW stands for 4th generation nuclear weapon. And here it says, while the 10-fold greater target coupling of 4th generation thermonuclear weapons is the first major difference between these weapons and those of the 1st and 2nd generations, the second major difference is that the radiations from 4th generation weapons can easily be used to energize a working material and therefore to produce other effects than just heat or blast. As a matter of fact, this second difference was already one of the militarily attractive features of 3rd generation thermonuclear weapons, where radiations from advanced nuclear or thermonuclear explosives were used in directed energy warheads to produce powerful plasma jets or X-ray laser beams. Wow. So going back to the difference, 2nd generation thermonuclear weapons produce a first stage and a second stage, a fission A-bomb and a fusion H-bomb. 3rd generation says we're going to control the neutron release. 3rd generation, they figure out, okay, we can either make there be a lot of neutrons, like a neutron bomb, or we can have there be a small amount of neutrons. We can control the amount of heat. We control the amount of blast being released. That's what 3rd generation was. And then 4th generation turns this into a pure fusion bomb where we don't use an A-bomb at all, where we have a non-fission trigger. But we can use these outcomes, these physical properties of the bomb for military purposes. And yes, there is a connection to SDI. These guys literally worked on SDI. In fact, it's possible, unlikely, but it is possible that the orbs in the MH370 video are a weapon that was created during SDI or afterwards or after the fact. Could be. I don't think so, but it's possible. Now, the last part here, it says, the principle of a nuclear-driven shaped charge is to replace the energy from the conventional explosive by the energy from a nuclear explosive. Since most of the energy from a fission explosive, the A-bomb, is in the form of X-rays, this means using these X-rays to collapse a liner and form a jet, i.e. to replace the high explosives detonation products by a high energy photon gas, like a plasma. In theory, this concept is perfectly sound and can be seen as a simple variation of the Teller-Ulam principle used to compress the secondary of an H-bomb. In practice, it seems that this idea was studied in the context of third-generation nuclear weapons, but it is not known whether it was fruitful or not. In particular, it could be that since there is no energy multiplication, as in an H-bomb secondary, the energy imparted to the jet was found to be too small to be of any use compared to the vast energy wasted in the fission explosive needed to drive the jet. So what it's saying here is, sure, we could do this, but what does it do? What the subtext there is, what does a pure fusion bomb actually do? Does it annihilate the target? Does it shoot it off at a tremendous speed somewhere else? What is it actually doing? And this is the big mystery. Since the 60s, we have no idea. There has never been a public test ever since then. Right in 1963, right after we do the Project Ripple, right after we figure out how to make these super efficient thermonuclear weapons, these third generation weapons, we passed the Partial Test Ban Treaty. And the Partial Test Ban Treaty says we can no longer test these weapons. Wow. So, a couple other things, and then we're going to go to the Wood document. We can think of the Schwinger limit as the ceiling. That's the ceiling of the energy limit by which space-time can accept. The other way to think of it would be to think of it as the surface tension. Think of it as the surface tension of space-time itself. When you say, oh, what is surface tension? Like the surface of the water. What does it take to actually break through the water and get to the other side? What does that take to actually separate, or to create a water droplet that separates entirely from the lake, from the ocean, and is now independent? How do you break the surface tension? We need to get to an energy level where we can break right through the surface tension of space-time. That's the Schwinger limit. For the people saying, yes, of course, resonance is connected to this. Of course it is. When you read all these scientific papers, they all talk about resonance. And basically, we're just trying to get everything to jiggle and synchronization. And if you can control that, this is what we're doing, what we're talking about. We're talking about controlling shaping our waves, shaping our pulses. We're talking about getting everything to vibrate exactly as what we expect. And what this requires, this is what requires supercomputers. This is why they built the computers. Humans can't do this math. It's too complicated. Humans can't do that math. It's like, okay, now this thing's going to interact with this thing next to it, and that thing's going to interact with the thing next to it, and then these waves are going to compress back and forth, and you have to calculate all that. That's what we need the supercomputers for. That's what we've been using them for. In addition to figuring out how to vector an object through three-dimensional space. Supercomputers are needed for all this. This is where we were producing AI for this. Military AI. Machine intelligence. One of the things that I thought... Oh, and then last thing is the DIRDs, guys. I've had so many revelations tonight, the DIRDs. When you read the Defense Intelligence Reference documents, there can be no denying that they are related to nuclear weapons. The Defense Intelligence Reference documents are related to nuclear weapons. The most advanced laser that the DIRDs talk about in their high energy laser paper is literally the nuclear pumped free electron X-ray laser. The same exact one that was used to develop thermonuclear weapons. They talk about aneutronic fusion propulsion. That's clean. That's a clean fusion bomb. And they talk about ER equals EPR. The idea that general relativity, that wormholes are equivalent to quantum entanglement. Hal Puthoff and the DIRDs is basically taking nuclear science, all of our nuclear discoveries since the A-bomb, since the H-bomb, and saying this is the technology that it will all lead to publicly. There's no way anybody can convince me that the guy that got all of those scientific papers written cares about aliens. You're telling me the guy that knows about all those technologies, that knows about thermonuclear weapons, now he's going on movies talking about, yeah, well, the aliens might be really upset at us. They might be like really angry. Come on, bro. Come on. You're too serious of a person, and you're too much in the know to be gaslighting me about aliens. Start talking to me about thermonuclear weapons. Start talking to me about when we first figured out a unification theory. Because what this means is that they unified quantum mechanics and general relativity like 70 years ago. They already figured out math. They already figured out all of physics from thermonuclear weapons. And they've just been hiding it because it's all classified. It's all considered restricted data. That's the term they use, restricted data. And restricted data can include physics theories. That can include physics theories. And what it means is that the reason why, actually, we'll just hang on to that. I just want you guys to remember that I'm going to show you guys some pieces from this article here, is that people that know about classified information, they have to remember what things are classified. The most common way that classified information gets revealed is accidentally. It's accidentally. Because they have to remember, oh, that physics is classified. I'm not allowed to talk about that physics. This is the reason why when you listen to Eric W. Davis, it almost feels like he's searching a declassified database in his head about what he's allowed to say. Because they don't want to get in trouble for accidentally saying something that would be too much. And this is why I probably won't push on Salvatore Pais that much on Sunday, because I don't want to get him in trouble. I could, but I don't want to get him in trouble. I know Salvatore Pais knows about some pretty advanced weapons. If not thermonuclear weapons, he's working on these kinds of technologies. That's the only way Salvatore Pais could know about this stuff. And I don't want any help, and we don't need any help. Chat, we don't need any help. When you got people like Tom Hudson digging this stuff up and other people digging this stuff up, we don't need help. We're figuring it out without anybody else. We're figuring it out without anybody else. I'm only upset that I didn't figure it out sooner. I'm only upset that I did not figure this stuff out sooner, guys. So it turns out that Wood, the thermonuclear weapons designer, I read some articles about him. He was a UCLA graduate. He was an F student. That's the way they at least characterize him. A lot of these people were autodielectrics, or whatever you freaking call it, self-taught. A lot of these people were self-taught. A lot of these people that were the nuclear weapons engineers were not like the stuck-up nerd person that's like super awkward. A lot of them were just like people that were, they were wild cards. They were wild cards, and that includes Wood as well. So when people come at you and they say, oh, where did you go to school? Where did you learn this? Remind them that a lot of the top engineers and scientists that have worked on our most classified weapons, they were just people off the street. Because they care more about how you think. They care more about your personality type than they care about, oh, did you think the right science? Can you memorize something and then repeat it? Those are not qualities that they value. Those are not qualities that they value. So, oh, excuse me. So here, after that first document here said, I'm just going to read a few of these. As you can see, I've got a bunch of them lined up. Soon we were in the heart of Silicon Valley, moving past the Moffett Naval Air Station, the NASA Ames Research Center, and the Lockheed Space Tracking Facility. Its huge dish-shaped antennas pointing at the sky. I mentioned that the facility was said to control most of the black or intelligence-gathering satellites of the U.S. Air Force. With a frown, Han Wah said he could neither confirm nor deny that statement. It was a catchphrase for those of us in the know. It also represented one of the problems with getting security clearance. Keeping track of what was secret and what was not was often difficult. There you go. And I've heard this multiple times. But keeping track of what's secret and what's not is difficult, which is why a lot of people will just say either they can't confirm or deny, or they will say they will just divert the question. This is why Eric Davis said he was trained by the CIA on how to divert questions. So this is super important when it comes to like Obama and the other people that are in the know and the people that know about Gorgon's Stare. All of these people that know about this stuff, they have classifications that are so high that there's nothing they can say about it. This is why even President Trump is pushing the line. President Trump is pushing the line when he says we have weapons that nobody understands, because that's a clever way to reveal information without revealing anything classified. Like there's nothing specific classified that says we have weapons that nobody understands, right? This is why Trump is smart, guys. When Trump says something, people really, really need to listen because he's definitely in the know when it comes to this level of technology. And then also think about people like Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis. Every time you're listening to these people that know about this technology, keep in mind they have NDAs. They have to be careful about what they say, because if they say something wrong, they might be brought up on a tribunal. I still don't even know how to say this word. Autodidactic. I don't even know. However you say that word. Self-taught, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it turns out Wood, I believe it's Wood here, he taught himself quantum mechanics. Can you believe that? Taught himself quantum mechanics. He's an electrical engineer. By the way, all of them are electrical engineers. There's a common theme where a lot of these guys, they go from electrical engineering to then becoming quantum physicists, nuclear engineers, etc. And the reason is because of 0-point energy, because everything is electric. So of course you want your primary class, guys. You're in an RPG. Your primary class has to be an electrical engineer. But then you upgrade when you get to level 20. You get to level 20, you get your class promotion. Class promotion, you go from electrical engineer to nuclear physicist. Experimental nuclear physicist, class promotion. That's an advanced class. Once you've got the advanced class, then you can go and develop thermonuclear weapons. Then you can understand 0-point energy. Then you can understand free energy. There you go. I made that palatable for the Zoomers out there, for my other nerds and video game players. Now you all understand what those things mean. So here we go. Here's a little bit more. The search for the X-ray laser. How big is this? Yeah, okay, I'll make it a little bit bigger. The search for the X-ray laser at Livermore had actually gotten underway in the late 60s. The pace picking up considerably when Lowell, I'm going with Lowell until he corrects me. Lowell and George Chaplin teamed up to pursue it. By the way, George, we remember George, right? There he is. Third author of the paper. was the one that helped develop the free electron laser. Lowell. Okay, we're going with Lowell. Lowell Wood. So Lowell Wood teams up with George Chaplin. They write this scientific paper about gravity being manipulated by thermonuclear weapons. And here we go. So they teamed up together to make an X-ray laser. George, in particular, never stopped pondering the elusive goal. During the mid-1970s, he occasionally worked on the problem, but from a different angle than Peter. George wanted to pump an X-ray laser with a power source many billions of times more powerful than the biggest laboratory laser on Earth. He wanted to use a nuclear bomb. Wow. Wow. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about fusion. This is the beginning of fusion propulsion. This is the beginning of how they figured out super powerful fusion propulsion lasers that can fly the orbs around. And is probably the basis for how they create the inertial confinement fusion as well. So he says, such thoughts had occurred to others before. Indeed, for decades, the weapons enthusiasts at Livermore had envisioned using nuclear bombs to dig ditches, blast asteroids, hint, hint, Salvatore Pais, create black holes, and pump all kinds of exotic beam weapons. But Chaplin in 1977 came up with a novel idea for how to go about building a nuclear-pumped X-ray laser. And one of those odd coincidences that year also marked the appearance of the movie Star Wars. Wow. We'll get to the super chats in just a minute, guys. I saw some of those super chats pop up. Got a few more to go. Next one. The group's first meeting with the president took place in January of 1982. This is about the SDI, talking about Ronald Reagan here. Followed by 2 other White House visits prior to the Star Wars speech of 1983. In addition, Edward Teller, had a private meeting with the president in September of 1982, during which he stressed the importance of the technologies being developed at Lawrence Livermore. In all, Teller met with the president 4 times over the course of a little more than a year. Throughout this period, the government maintained a news blackout on the subject of the X-ray laser. No official was to acknowledge that it even existed, despite the detailed leak that had appeared in Aviation Week. That silence was officially broken by Keyworth, the president's science advisor, in a talk at Livermore. Wow. Chat. We hit the mother lode. We have figured it out. It turns out that the free electron laser leaked, and they had a full blackout on it. They weren't allowed to talk about it at all. But who was the person that eventually leaked and was able to talk about it? The president's science advisor. Well, that's interesting. Who is the current president's science advisor? Oh, this is the current president's science advisor right here.
We seem to have lost focus and vision, to have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, causing...
That right there is literally the current president's science advisor. It turns out Reagan's science advisor was the one that leaked, or didn't. I mean, it already leaked out there, but he was the one that confirmed the free electron X-ray laser that the nuclear engineers were building. And just a week ago, I was saying that this laser would be the thing that is being used in the MH370 videos. That this type of nuclear pumped relativistic free electron laser would be able to produce and amplify energy to a degree that it can actually manipulate space-time, produce gravitational waves, and use it for propulsion or even beyond. Well. There you have it right there, guys. So Edward Teller was meeting with Reagan and telling him that the technologies they were working at Livermore is one of 2 nuclear weapons testing facilities. Livermore is one of 2 nuclear weapons testing facilities. And Edward Teller had to go tell Ronald Reagan why what they were working on was so important. You know why he had to do that? Because even presidents don't get to know about this technology. The president only gets to know about this if they have a need to know, if there's a reason. Now, a lot of people probably do have reasons to know and needs to know, but there's probably a lot of people that didn't. Ronald Reagan might have been one of the people that didn't have a need to know. Might have not had a need to know. I'm actually surprised that Trump knows, and I do kind of want to know how Trump knows. What was the thing that led to Trump figuring out that we've got this crazy technology? You can tell he wants to say it. How many times did the guy say that we have weapons nobody understands? Like 2 or 3 times? He wants to say it. He wants to say it, chat. Okay, so more about Lowell. More about Lowell, guys. I'm going to say his name correctly at least one time. In usual fashion, let me make this a little bigger. In usual fashion, Lowell wanted to do something practical with his proposal. For instance, using black holes to make electrical power in space. Well, chat, I've been one-upped again. Turns out Lowell quite literally stole my idea. Lowell came to the future. He stole my idea for a black hole super weapon. He stole my idea about using a black hole. Wasn't it like last week that I said that you can make a black hole and probably suck energy off of it, but the problem would be you need to keep it stable. If you feed it too much energy, then it's going to suck everything in and we're all going to die, right? I said that we can probably make a fusion reactor that's basically a black hole that will run forever. But the downside is it's probably going to be in some kind of equilibrium where if you mess with it, it wipes us all out. It sucks in the whole planet. We're all done. Well, it turns out Lowell went to the future. He's heard my idea, and then he went to the past with my idea and already wrote about it in 1974. Wow. So I'm a little bit behind. I was thinking that these were unique ideas that I was having in 2024, 2023, 2025 about making black hole weapons and making black hole fusion reactors. And here's Lowell, who had already come up with them many, many, many decades before. There we go. So he says the idea was to have a space station fire pellets of fusion fuel towards a mini black hole. Just before it vanished into the hole's powerful gravitational grip, the fuel would become enormously compressed, reaching the point of thermonuclear ignition. The energy radiated into space would be captured by the nearby space station and relayed back down to Earth. In 1974, Lowell presented this idea to a scientific meeting in New York Academy of Sciences where it evoked gasps and chuckles. It was, he insisted, a serious proposal. Wow. Wow, chat. How did we not know about this guy? Yeah, this guy he wasn't joking. He was not joking when he said this. This echoes 2 things to me. One, John Brandenburg told me basically the same thing. John Brandenburg, my sources tell me John Brandenburg was kind of in on the inside of some of this stuff as well. I don't know to what degree. And he told me something similar where you could make this plasma ball black hole and you would shoot pellets into it. He was clearly referencing Lowell, clearly, because that's right there is what he's saying. Number 2, beaming energy down to Earth. That reminds me of Lieutenant General Stephen Quast. Lieutenant General Stephen Quast was talking about beaming energy to Earth so that you never have to plug your cell phone in ever again. Even Elon Musk mentioned it. So Lieutenant General Quast went on Sean Ryan and mentioned this, said, we can beam energy to Earth. And Elon Musk comments and says, that's not possible. Physics doesn't work that way. Elon said, no, You know, the energy falls off by the inverse square law. There's no way you can beam energy hundreds and hundreds of miles. But here he is. Here's Lowell basically saying the same thing. Lowell's basically saying we would have some solar panels. We shoot stuff at our black hole, and then we extract the energy that comes from it. And then we beam it back down to Earth. Wow. So if you thought that, oh, I was just taking him out of context on his black hole comment, no. This guy was full on Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty. Full on, just like the other guy. And also, what are we learning here? Between this and John Nuckolls, remember, John Nuckolls, he said that in their group chats, people said he was talking about science fiction. He was basically saying that people in the group chats didn't even believe the stuff that they were proposing. And John Nuckolls was talking about a thermonuclear engine. So we've got John Nuckolls talking about making a thermonuclear engine. And we've got his colleague, Lowell Wood, out here basically, to me, making gravity waves. Trying to make gravity waves, trying to make wormholes, it seems like. Trying to make black holes that produce power forever. These are some pretty revolutionary ideas. And again, the thing that makes this so credible, these are the guys that literally built our thermonuclear weapons. You can't be more credible than these guys. These guys literally built the most powerful weapons that we have in our entire arsenal. And they were designing different variants, because now we're realizing nuclear weapons are like gremlins. It's like the movie Gremlins, chat. This is actually a perfect analogy. What have we realized today is thermonuclear weapons are like the movie Gremlins. A, never feed it after midnight. Never feed it after midnight. Because then it will become a demon. And never put water on them, because then they multiply. Next thing you know, we've got thermonuclear weapons of every different kind. We've got a thermonuclear weapon with spider legs. We've got a thermonuclear weapon that just makes Boeing 777s teleport. We've got a thermonuclear weapon that can just drop an EMP and just make all the power go out in an entire city. We've got a thermonuclear weapon that just releases neutrons. So all it is just a bath of heat and radiation and just melts anything and everything in the way. We've got a thermonuclear weapon for every single occasion, chat. If you've got some ISIS terrorists that you need to have disappear, we've got a thermonuclear weapon that can solve that problem for you. Probably several different kinds. That's what I want people to take away from tonight. We've got thermonuclear weapons of different varieties, and they're doing a lot more than just doing a big boom. Last live stream was things that go boom, and this live stream is 4th generation thermonuclear weapons. And what do those look like? In fact, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person, and when I say only person, I mean out of the influencers. I'm the only person out of the influencer crowd that has even proposed this idea. I know a lot of people in the replies are going, I said this and blah, blah, blah. Great. But out of like the UFO people, out of the physicists, nobody is saying this. No, guys, Pulitzer Prize number 2 right here. Pulitzer Prize number 2 right here, guys. Okay, so going back a couple this might be the last one here. And this is, again, one of the most interesting ones. At war, he had, as the statute put it, knowingly transmitted secret and restricted data to a foreign national. This was the downfall of Lowell, guys. This was his downfall right here. Moreover, the full penalty was likely to be imposed because over the years, Lowell's acerbic nature, acerbic style and outspoken advocacy of extreme ideas had won him a fair number of enemies in the weapons lab and government. To his foes, Lowell was a bully and a show-off who couldn't be trusted with the conduct of pure science, much less the possession of top national secrets. Now they had the security slip with which to press home their point. A secret trial was held in 1975 to determine what should be done about Lowell's breach. The judges being members of the board of senior security reviewers from the federal government. Things went badly. It looked as if Lowell's Q clearance would be revoked as a first step to some kind of punishment. The end of his nuclear career was at hand. Then, at the last minute, Lowell pulled out a hidden ace, a scientific paper he had found that contained the same secret information. Among its authors were Glenn T. Seaborg, former head of the Atomic Energy Commission. The judges were in a mood to hang, but the new evidence was unequivocal. The secret data had already slipped out of the government's hands by accident several years earlier. Lowell was acquitted. Though free on a technicality, Lowell faced repercussions from the incident. Before the trial, he had been removed as the associate head of the physics department. In its wake, problems multiplied. Teller, nearly 70 years old, was then associate director for physics at the lab and was set to retire in 1975 from the post. Lowell had been widely seen as the inevitable successor, but now his enemies at the lab and in the government had leverage, and they pressed it to their advantage. Lowell failed to win Teller's post as the associate director. It was a major setback. Wow. That might actually be the most interesting part of the whole live stream for me. The part I like the most is the true crime aspect. I love to understand the why. And what does this tell us? If we read between the lines, we learn a lot from this. Not only is there a militant cult of secrecy, they have this cult of secrecy where they do tribunals on engineers who talk a little too much in the public. That's how they're keeping it quiet. What else does it tell us? It tells us that these engineers, there's not a lot of, they don't change roles a lot. You don't see an Edward Teller, the people they trust with this science, you're in it for life. You're in it for life. When they pull you in on this, you're CIA for life. You're a nuclear weapons secret scientist for life. And you don't come out. And they have to have a succession plan. When someone like Edward Teller is ready to retire with all that secret information in his head, there has to be a new person, and that person needs to know what Edward Teller knew. But we don't want anybody else to know it. Now, this creates a problem. This is how they lost the fog bank information. Because by design, they kept everything secret. By design, they kept it in people's heads. But then the problem is those people quit or those people die, and there's no succession plan. And that's how we lose the fog bank secret recipe and why we have to re-engineer it. So this is telling us a lot, because when you have a situation like this, where the engineers are, I would say it's like an encrusted organization. You have this encrusted organization where anybody that goes against it, you get a court-martial, you get written up by the JSON group, or you go to prison. When you have this culture, this is what allows secrecy to fester. Secrecy, and then it gets to the point where it becomes legally questionable. Becomes legally questionable whether or not this is even a legal thing that we're doing, keeping all of these major advancements from the public. So I think that we're probably seeing some of this today as well. We just saw the NASA administrator turnover. I don't think that's related to this, but I think that you should look at who are the nuclear weapons engineers, and when they retire, who is picking up their role? Who is picking up their role? These are the ways and the reasons why this nuclear inertial confinement fusion, all this stuff has been classified. The reason why the public hasn't caught on to it is because of the fact that we've built up this system, which by design is meant to keep everything secret, keep everything from leaking out to the public. But if you actually go and listen to the engineers directly, you're hearing them talking about general relativity, black holes, hearing them talk about science fiction concepts. And so this is where we can figure out like what was really going on. So after all of this, I cannot be more convinced that we figured out space-time manipulation from nukes. I wasn't 100% convinced before, but pretty confident. After seeing the scientific paper, and there's a second scientific paper about black holes. After seeing this scientific paper, I'm 100% sure. I mean, I could not even have dreamed that this scientific paper even existed. Gravitational radiation produced using nuclear explosions. George Chaplin, John Nuckolls, and Lowell Wood. Two of the three guys that helped build the first nuclear pumped free electron X-ray laser, next to the guy that helped build third generation clean hydrogen bombs. There you go. Anybody that ever doubts in the future, all we have to do is show them this scientific paper. And then the question is, why was there no follow-up? How come 1974 we have a paper about using nukes to create gravitational waves, and then nothing ever happened after that? That was 50 years ago. That was 51 years ago. And nobody ever asked a single question. Nobody's even asking the question, are nuclear weapons powerful enough to manipulate space-time? The physics says they should be. The physics says it's certainly possible, but nobody's asking that question. So I encourage you all to ask the question. I encourage you all to spread awareness about thermonuclear weapons, fourth generation thermonuclear weapons, which can produce clean aneutronic fusion bombs, pure releases of energy, confined to a very small region of space-time, using non-fission triggers. So we are going to dig up through any of these additional threads related to John Nuckolls, related to Lowell Wood, or even George Chaplin. If you're a researcher, I encourage you to dig into all these people, find everything about them, find any references to black holes. You're not going to find a lot of references to wormholes because the idea wasn't really fleshed out in physics in the 70s. It wasn't really fleshed out. So you're probably not going to see a lot of references to that. But anyway, thank you guys. Let's do some of the super chats, guys. Chaotic Good in the super chat says, at this point, the only difference between highly regarded and highly retarded is a PhD from an Ivy League institution. Yeah, PhDs don't mean much, guys, but I will say that a lot of these engineers do end up being professors. It seems like their side gig is being a professor. Their real job is they're black project engineers that work for the Atomic Energy Commission or DOE or whatever. But then on the side, they just go and they like teach like one class. They probably teach like one class and they at their university where they get highly paid. And that's just like their public facing, reputation gig. Leslie, thank you, Leslie, for always being in the chat. I recognize you. Says, being correct endlessly must be exhausting. Get a coffee here since day one. Guys, we have been proven correct so many times. And I think that this is the big one. This one's so big because nobody will be able to take this away from me because nobody is saying this. What's going to happen is at some point, Ross Coulthart or someone like him is going to say, my sources are just telling me that there's a connection between the UFOs and nuclear weapons development, right? You're going to hear him say something like that. And I'm going to go, dude, I already solved this. I already solved this whole thing. Nobody has been saying this. The person who's the closest is Dr. Stephen Greer. And I spoke to him like 2 weeks ago. I spoke to him about all of this like 2 weeks ago. So even he's not really pieced it all together, but he knows that UFOs and nuclear weapons are being classified under the same area. But when it's been proven, when they admit that nuclear weapons are powerful enough to manipulate space-time, there can be no more denying the MH370 videos. There can be no more denying the MH370 videos. Because I would have either had to get super lucky and just accidentally figure out a secret that nobody in the world knows about, or those videos have to be one of those weapons, right? That's the only two possibilities. So there you go. This is the beauty. The beauty of knowing the MH370 videos are real is that I can get ahead of the narratives. And I can predict things that nobody would else be able to predict without knowing those videos are real. That's the beauty of the videos. And this isn't even the only thing. There's probably multiple things like this, but the physics being proven real is probably going to be the thing that turns most people to look back at the videos and go, wait a minute, did a random YouTuber really debunk these videos? Or are these videos possibly actually Air Force Gorgon stare and a color FLIR video of a real missing plane? Sadly, I think that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to take. So thank you very much, Leslie. Appreciate that donation. Brian Pemble, I haven't seen you in a while, Brian, says fusion works. Deuterium and tritium for fuel held together by magnetic fields. Plasma leaks 3,000% over unity. Contracts already in place for powering utility companies. Yes, I mean, fusion is, I mean, you could already seen it. Helium fusion. We've talked about them a lot. There's several other fusion companies as well. So fusion definitely works. They know about it. And the people that are working about commercially are basically being told by the people that are in the black world that it works. They're saying, hey, this will work. Go do it. I can't tell you exactly how it works, but because it's classified, but I know it works and you should go do it too. And then they know those people are legit. And that's why we're seeing all this stuff happen from the public perspective. Timothy Foster, thank you very much for that donation and your other donations on my channel. I appreciate you. Pippi Universe with a huge donation says, you think Donald saying EEUU will start trying more nukes? It's because EEUU knows China, Russia, and maybe other countries are near in the black hole nuke transportation plasma tech. Yes. If so, things are going to be spicy pretty soon. Yes. The context there was, do I think that the reason why we're restarting nuclear weapons testing is because China and Russia are getting close to this technology? Yes, absolutely. In fact, we were going to go over the quantum initiative, but we're not going to go over it tonight. I knew we wouldn't have time, so we're going to push it to Friday. But we have seen them push for AI research. We have seen them pushing and funding fusion research. And now they're opening 5 new AI quantum labs. 5. And we're going to go through all the details on Friday. It's pretty amazing. So absolutely what's happening is behind the scenes, the president, the Secretary of War, Marco Rubio, the people at the top, they're being told China is going to surpass us. Like, we have to publicly get ahead of this. Otherwise, it's going to be really awkward when we have these technologies, but they're all in the black world, and China's got them in public. And here's the thing, too, is that remember, what got Lowell Wood off? It turned out there was a scientific paper out there so that he wasn't the one that leaked it. So if a scientific paper is already out there, then it's now not your fault. In fact, this was what Edward Lin tried to argue as well, but it didn't work because he's the guy that leaked the videos. But in the case of Lowell Wood, it saved his butt because the science that he supposedly leaked that was classified was already in a scientific paper. So the moment China has proven these concepts, now there's no reason for us to hide it anymore. This is the big rub, is that people say, when is it going to come out? It's going to come out when we use it in a war or when China shows it publicly. When China shows it publicly, we will already have something that's already slightly better. Kind of funny to say, but that's how it works. So thank you very much, Pippi Universe, for that donation and all your other big donations. I appreciate you. Zapparoo says, fantastic, Ashton. Thank you for the research. With pure fusion and neutrons, would the orbs expose MH370 to EMP? Yes. Remember, I said that what I think is happening to the plane is basically like an EMP bomb. Now, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that because I think that they can actually produce an EMP that would just knock out power. But I think they can also produce an EMP like we see that is a implosive effect. I mean, we can see the implosive effect in the MH370 videos. You can see this black blob kind of expand and then compress down. We're looking at inertial confinement fusion. So I think the people are all definitely dead. Even if they were teleported away, I think they're definitely dead. There's just, I mean, the amount of X-rays they're being beamed with, there's just no way that can end well for people. So they can make pure EMP bombs. They can make pure neutron bombs, which are the opposite of that. And they can probably make everything in between. So what have they really been working on is that they've basically been teetering, or they've been kind of playing with the recipe. They've been playing with the thermonuclear weapon recipe, figuring out what can we do with this recipe. And the moment they figured out that it's manipulating space-time, there's a lot of options, chat. There's a lot of different recipes that you can make once you figure out that it's manipulating space-time. And that's where I assume they got on the phone with John Kramer and they were like, okay, guys, turns out our thermonuclear weapons are manipulating space-time. So does that mean that we can make something appear over here where we want it to appear? And then John Kramer says, well, let me tell you about the EPR experiments, right? Let me tell you about phase conjugation, optical phase conjugation, where we can make an image reappear somewhere, right? Those kinds of things. So thank you very much for that donation, Zapparoo. I appreciate you. And then Matt Bartleson, nice to meet you, Matt Bartleson, a while back, says, what a time to be alive. Thank you, Ashton and MH370X. That 420 donation. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, this is true disclosure. The Mick Leonard with the final donation says, great show again. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody in the Rumble chat and everybody in the Pill chat as well. I'm sorry I forgot to do the live stream the other day. Okay, guys. So that's where we're at tonight, guys. You're looking at real disclosure. When it turns out nuclear weapons are manipulating space-time, then you'll know that everything that I've been telling you for the last 2 years is real, is legit. Make sure to check out Friday's live stream. We're going to be back talking about politics, and then we're going to talk about these new quantum data center, or whatever labs that they're building out. We're going to talk about those as well. Should be an awesome live stream. Got a bunch of stuff. And then Sunday, we're going to have the live stream between Dave Rossi, Sal, and myself. It's probably going to be at 3 o'clock Eastern. I think that's the time that we always do it for Sal to accommodate his schedule. So that one should be an amazing live stream. Another Hard Truths podcast coming right at you guys. Thank you, MH370X. Hope you guys have a great night. We will be back on Friday, guys. Peace out, everybody. Later.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeezed so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Coulomb forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound. A shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread. talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow. From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Explore